All right, Shalom, welcome back to another lesson. I pray it be an edifying lesson to the elect. We're going to continue covering Genesis, the 49th chapter, breaking down the prophecy that Jacob, spoke over the 12 tribes and who they would be today. And Lord willing, this to be an edifying lesson, continuing on, dealing with the tribe of Zebulun. And before we get into it, I want to give all the glory to the Most High Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shai and the Holy Spirit, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, Bashem Kakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, our leadership. Peace, mercy, and grace to the household of faith, the elect, because this is all about the edification and the building up of the saints, the elect. And continuing on, dealing with Zebulun, you're looking at an image of some Zebulunites, which Zebulun is dealing with the people from Guatemala to Panama, all right, so-called Central America, so-called Central Latin America, and this is just an image of them. And you can even look in the background, you can see the fringes hanging, which the fringes are a Israelite custom, going back to Numbers, and I want to say the 15th chapter or the 16th chapter, but I want to say the 15th chapter. It was a commandment, put these on the end of your garments to help you remember the law, statutes, and commandments, because you had a Jake that picked up sticks on the Sabbath, which was considered working, and the Lord killed him for it, because the Sabbath, they said, the Lord said, no work on the Sabbath, you should be resting. So the Lord killed him and used him as an example. So this custom is a custom that's exclusive, particularly to our people, the fringes. And so, as we always say, that the whole Israelite thing is not a black so-called black only thing. You also have the native and the Native Americans, the Hispanics, so-called these so-called titles, so-called Native Americans, Seminole Indians, Hispanics, which are also included in the 12 tribes of Israel. So these are the Lord's chosen people as well. So, with that, we can go ahead here to Genesis 49 and 13. It says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. So let's break that down. All right, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be a haven for ships. This is talking about the Panama Canal, okay? Zebulun, which are, the people from Guatemala to Panama, all right, they're surrounded by water, but particularly when you go down here into Panama, you have something there where that sign that says Panama City, you have something there called the Panama Canal, okay, which pretty much makes transportation on the sea a lot easier, because prior to building it, ships would have to go from San Francisco all the way around the southern horn of Africa, and then all the way around the East Coast, all the way up to New York. And when they built the Panama Canal about 100 years ago, now they can go from San Francisco straight to the Panama Canal, and from there on up to New York. And this was important. It was an important military move. I was looking at some history on it, and just to bring it out, just a side note, but the canal was a geopolitical strategy to make the United States the most powerful nation on the earth. So this was built, and it helped with the building of the United States, because America was, prophesied to be Babylon the Great. And when I say America, the United States was prophesied to be Babylon the Great, and it would have to get built up and be this great, powerful entity. And of course, Jake always gonna be involved with the prosperity and the growth of a nation. You know what I'm saying? So, this played an important part on making United States powerful. I'm going to read a little bit of this. It says the U.S. for the first time was going to be able to gain control of both oceans. That was critical in times of war. There was no air power, so the way you fought an enemy was through the sea. World power was consistent with maritime power. Maritime deals with the sea. Americans knew they needed this to move ships from east to west quickly. If they did that, they would control power, because they would control the oceans. The canal was a geopolitical strategy to make the United States the most powerful nation on earth. Also, the economic impact was massive. Now you could unite the trade between the two oceans starting in the 1890s and until World War I. Global trade was just as significant as it is now, so it was important to have a commute route across the continent. In part, the canal was central to the U.S. vision of itself as a beneficent power in the world. As the U.S. was emerging as a global power, it was important to distinguish themselves from the old powers of Europe, which they saw as more crassly seeking power and control and colonialism. The U.S. wanted to frame a vision of itself as a more selfless, more a help to the world, more advanced in civilization, blah, blah, blah. So here you go. The SS Anchor, the first ship to pass through the Panama Canal on August 15, 1914. All right, a haven of ships, right? Dwell at the haven of the sea. Okay, so and I know I mentioned the well, I spoke about that already. So as it says, and his border shall be unto Zidon. So what that's talking about is talking about the it's talking about, let me see, the Olmec heads, because you had various Olmec heads and different things that were left here as landmarks. Okay, these different things were left here as landmarks by King Solomon's navy and Hiram's navy, because they used to come here. All right, so let's go ahead and go into that. They used to come here. 1 Kings 9. You had Hiram of the king of Tyre, or Tyre, however you want to say. So this is 1 Kings 9 and 27. It says, and Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. And they came to Ophir and fetched from thence gold 420 talents and brought it to King Solomon. And Ophir is speaking about the Americas. So Hiram and his navy, these are people that used to come over here to the Americas, and they used to leave certain landmarks like these heads here, as like landmarks, and they would come here, and they would travel here, and they would bring gold and different riches, because America is full of resources, full of riches, and they would bring it back to King Solomon. So you go over one more chapter. 1 Kings 10 and 22 says, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. Yeah, and these were things that they were bringing from over here, from Ophir. All right, the scriptures call them the Americas, the Ophir. Also in Second Esdras is known as Arsareth. We're gonna get that next, because that's going to back up why it says once in 3 years. All right, once in 3 years. So let's go straight there. Second Esdras 13, verse 45. Okay, and this is talking about the 10 tribes. See, verse 40, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they in another land. So you had the northern kingdom of the 10 tribes, which today we call the so-called Native American and Latin tribes. They went into the captivity under the Assyrians for a time, and then they ended up leaving that area, that region. You can say the Middle East if you want to, and then they ended up sailing the east of Africa, and then they ended up kind of, that map ain't gonna show it, but they ended up selling, and then they ended up. So this account is kind of telling you what happened. So it says, matter of fact, I can keep reading verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Because the Most High was guiding this. He was setting it up so that they can get over here, because they had a long ass way to go, and they never came over here. So how, it was divine, intervention taking place to get them over here. Verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. Right? So it took them a year and a half to get over here. Right? Which that backs up why we just read that it took that Navy, every 3 years they would go and come back with the resources, because it took a year and a half or so to get out here and a year and a half or so to get back. It says, and the same region is called Arsareth. All right, Arsareth, if you break it down into Hebrew, and I got this from Elder Apostle Dahar, Arsareth is Achar Aratazah, which means another land. Okay, so and the same region is called another land, Arsareth. So they would, the 10 tribes came here. And so going back to the prophecy, and his borders shall be unto Zidon. So that's what that's going into. It's going into those the navies of Haram and Solomon coming over here, to the Central Americas, leaving landmarks, and then eventually, these tribes will come over here. So that's pretty much that. So these are our people too. And I went to Mexico last year around this time, and I had a tour guide who was Mayan. We was going into a Mayan territory. I want to say it was Tulum, Mexico. Let's see, Tulum, Mexico, history. Yeah, Spanish pronunciation, Yucatec, Maya, Tulaum. So, yep, and he was Mayan. The site of Colombian main wall city, which served as a major port for Coba in the Mexican state of Quintana Roo. At Temple. So yeah, and they was bugged out. They into some strange shit. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much it, man. The Zebulunites are the Central American, so-called Hispanics. All right, on to the next one, Shalom.